Small Soldiers. What a fucking movie that was. An edgy answer to Toy Story with war against two teams. Also an anti-war film as well, I guess. Toy Story for cool, edgy teenagers who are gatekeep at the cool kids table. Get out, mom, you fat bitch. I'm too busy editing my Doom levels and plus my shooting so the chicks will be all over us. What exactly is it about though? Two teams going against each other. The Gorgonites and the Commandos. It was pretty straightforward and also pretty underrated too. It's funny since the toys themselves were controlled by AI chips, to which goes horribly wrong as the Commandos are literally terrorists by 2/3 of the movie, as they are using catapults with bombs and fire.
Whoa! Is that blackface, dude? Bro, please tell me that's not blackface. Serious?
And I find it funny there's a video explaining how Commandos are actually the good guys. Just like how I always wonder, what if the good guys won World War II? To which, hopefully, would come into fruition. What's weird is that this movie got re-rated from a PG to a 12. It's not really that graphic. I mean, let's be honest, it was mostly due to this scene.
Fully posable. Hello, Dolly. Sweet stuff. Hubba, hubba.
R&R, sir?
Request a 3-day pass, sir.
People. This is why the Commandos are based. We literally don't get that kind of talk in family movies anymore. At all. It's good old locker room talk. Something that was, acceptable, like, 10 years prior. If that were to happen at bars, where they'd have a sign saying, no banter allowed, we'll be making hour-long apologies on YouTube. What's funny is that there's this, too.
You've been a bad boy, and now you must be punished.
What the fuck? Like, seriously, what the actual fuck? I don't know if I would even compare it to Toy Story, or I would call it Toy Story and fucking crack. Or maybe I would compare it to a trilogy of movies named Prehysteria. A trilogy of movies my aunt gave me before she moved. Produced by Full Moon Pictures, who are known for a horror franchise named Puppet Master. Except they're mini dinosaurs, and the stop motion and acting is bad. I'll get you someday, I swear.
I know you hate animals, so please.
You want me to keep the putt-putt and these dinosaurs? What do you think this is? Dino Putt? Hey, wait a minute, that's it! Dino Putt! We'll make a fortune! Where'd they come from?
I just love happy endings. Hey, Dad.
Sorry to interrupt your putt, Ella. I just didn't think it was right for Uncle Hal to be smoking during your shot.
Oh, by the way, did you realize that the director of this film also directed the critically acclaimed Gremlins films? The creatures that are very similar looking. Oh, and the same director also directed the cult classic horror films Piranha and The Howling. The Howling, which has this scene that nobody talks about, where a lady is being gang raped. Oh no! Like, I can't show that on YouTube.
Is it wrong? This is turning me on.
You disgust me.
Also, when I was looking up the rape scene for this type of movie, 2 fucking websites came up which are pretty fucking interesting. ForceCinema.net, BestRapePorn.com, and another one called Motherless.com. Great rape scenes. I don't know why they exist, but they do. And that same director who filmed this rape scene went on to direct Looney Tunes Back in Action 20 years later. What a weird fucking transition. I mean, it's not like we had Sam Raimi and Peter Jackson do the same fucking thing in their early films, such as Evil Dead and Brain Dead. I mean, you gotta start somewhere, right? Anyway, Small Soldiers is a cult classic movie, nonetheless, which was met with mixed reception, and is likely forgotten, which is a shame because this did have potential for a sequel. But this video has nothing to do with the movie. Oh no. This is a video reviewing all of the games adapted from a movie. How many games, you may ask? I mean, that has to be like 1 or 2, right? No. 4 fucking games in the same year. So we got a PS1 third-person shooter, 3D action game developed by Dreamworksinteractive, who are now EA Los Angeles. Oh wait, I'm sorry, I mean Danger Close Games. Oh wait, they were defunct after they figured out that Medal of Honor Warfighter was shit? Huh. Who would have thought? A strategy, sort of, RTS named smallSoldiers Squad Commander for the PC. Another game for the PC named smallSoldiers Global Tech Design Lab, which is a fighting game where you can design your own Gorgonites and Commandos. And last but not least, a Game Boy game, to which I got stuck further away. The merchandising for this movie was out there like a speed chase between the police and your average everyday dindu. They really wanted this film to succeed. They really wanted this to be a franchise. They even had books to the movie. Fucking books! Sadly, due to it being a box office bomb, it was a flop. Fortunately, there is still a cult following for the movie. So much of a cult following to the point that where there is a smallSoldiers wiki. Wait, there's a smallSoldiers wiki? Let me go into the games section. There's a tabletop game? What the fuck? Oh, there's nothing there. So why the hell is it there in the first place? Like, you got a citation, Mr. Anonymous Wiki Editor? So in terms of being a game franchise, this is literally it. And everything else like toys, etc. to go with it. And even including toys that weren't even in the movie to begin with. Today we are going to be covering all 4 games in the series, starting with the best one in my opinion. And it's funny how today we are talking about the game that has nothing to do with the movie whatsoever. The PS1 game.
Commandos, let's open up a big can of whoop-ass.
Truly a gem, and also something unfortunately aged like milk. Truly a product of its time. Why do I call it a gem, you may ask? Well, because this has to be one of those unique game adaptions of a movie that I played. Probably the best in the smallSoldiers franchise, if you can call it that. The rest of the games just range from decent to just, well, I'm gonna go back to that later. Look at it, like, the presentation is awesome with the brown greys aesthetic to go with it. A boomershooter in the third person with similar feel to Heretic 2. I'm not even joking. This is probably the first PS1 game I ever remember playing as a kid. Right next to Crash Bandicoot, the first one. I played this at my aunt's house when the smallSoldiers movie came out back in 1998. I was possibly like 4 or 5 years old at the time. I swear, the design and theme look pretty goddamn good. It just feels very Quakish with a touch of Soul Reaver, as Razzo was in a spectral realm. I need to go back to that game. Maybe it's just a brown and grey design, as well as some shade of light green to go with the water. It really gives me those nostalgic memories of replaying this game as a kid, when I wasn't allowed to play Quake or Unreal. The tomb-like environment looks like a level where Ranger from Quake would be running around in. All we need is some gremlins look-like creatures and some HP Lovecraft demons to go with this crossover, and we're all set. There's tons of Quake mods for this type of shit. So why the fuck am I even wasting my time over this? Unlike the movie it's based off, it actually tries to make its own identity by making it take place in the fictional world, where sci-fi forces and Gorgonites are at war. Unlike the movie, which takes place in a modern day suburban neighborhood with toys being controlled by AI, in my opinion, I find the fictional setting of the PS1 game way more entertaining. And I'm glad they went this route, rather than doing what every movie tie-in game did back when they made them a fucking course. But before I overanalyze the game like a fucking pseudo-intellectual spurg, I'll be taking a look at the cover art for the game. Why talk about the cover art when you could just be talking about the game itself? Well, that's because, to my knowledge, I know that there's 2 separate cover arts for this. One being the PAL artwork. Looks pretty boring compared to the American artwork. Now that's an attention to detail and a complete sell that gets the fucking point across, unlike the tedious artwork for the PAL. I remember my cousin having the American version. I only have the British aid certification at the back, to which I never understood. So, is it the PAL or the American? I don't know. Every PAL copy online, I could just find this shitty cover art, and that's about it. And the back cover is also a complete sell too. But I've got tons of questions I have in terms of the choice for the screenshots. First off, this one. I can't remember both commandos being in the same level, knowing that, I shit you not, there's one commando each fucking level for some reason. Instead of like, I don't know, 2 or 3 or whatever. And the rest are just like robots and shit. Or maybe mechs or whatever. And the fact that the logo for the crossbow is a bit different to the final result. So, if this is some sort of beta test or demo, then I can understand, considering that this game did have a beta before its final release. And what the fuck happened to those walls? Okay, first off, before I go to the gameplay, I have to talk about the menu, because the menu looks awesome. A true attention to detail. Every time you select an option, it will load another screen with the characters being in their idle animations in different environments. How many games can you name today that even do something like this? Maybe 1 or 2. On a pre-rendered fucking background. Exactly, there are none. The backgrounds light up as you select an option. A good attention to detail. Although I forgot to mention, as I have this scaled up to a 1080p, and it just looks like the models are awkwardly placed there, like they're floating on the air. Oh yeah, and there's a password option, which I only used and wrote down when I didn't have a memory card. Yes, password options. Remember those? Remember when games like Crash Bandicoot would give you those at the end of the level? Before we play the game, we are greeted by an opening of Chip Hazard.
Commandos, exterminate the Gorgonites! Kill them all!
Deutschland, unser neues Glied, die Nationalsozialistische Partei und die Wehrmacht unseres Reiches, Sieg heil!
The true successor to the Austrian painters' empire, telling everyone to exterminate the Gorgonites. Then,
thus came the end to every freedom known to Gorgonites. And now the war is coming here, to Gorgon, our homeworld.
Archer, our main protagonist, is talking about the Holocaust. Archer, who is not voiced by Frank Legala, but instead voiced by Greg Berger.
And we can either wait patiently, build our reserves, and fashion our weapons, or we can go out to meet it. Now let the battle begin!
Oh yeah, and I found out while I was looking through his IMDb page, he voiced Terrell from Lexia Kane Defiance.
The others were grotesque, but... Yes, I am changed. I have become a god. Greater than you ever were, Raziel. You were never a god. Greater even than Kane!
It's funny because the games vary from dark themes in a way, aside from the sci-fi theme, of course. And also, looking at Archer and Kane in terms of outfits, coincidence much? Maybe. Oh, and he voiced Confred from Duckman too. And to anyone who says that this show is bad, show them this as a means of a rebuttal against the bullies. That's what you get for not respecting my opinion, cunt.
This is a message to people who keep calling Duckman Fuckman!
At least we have Tommy Lee Jones, which is probably the game's most saving grace when it comes to the cast and the voice acting. What kind of Down syndrome lips are these?
Look at his lips!
Okay, first off, that loading screen with the gargoyle creature at the top is pretty badass for a kid's game. It really gives off that nice fantasy vibe to it. Also, just a disclaimer, I'm going to be using save states on hard mode instead of just saving manually, because it takes like 1 second to do, unlike the probably like the 1 minute it takes though to do manually. You guys can spurg out in the comments about how I'm not a true gamer or all you want because I use save states. Also, some parts of the game are broken, so I might as well just use them just for the lack of hassle and frustration I have to deal with the game's mechanics. So, suck my cock, bitch. Oh yeah, also I'm doing 2 playthroughs. One playthrough that I've done is normal, and another one that I've done is hard. Hard mode doesn't really achieve much besides from giving the enemies more health and doing higher damage. Most games I can actually tolerate if they were actually done well. Here I think I'll pass from playing on hard again. You will see why later on. This game isn't as hard as Doom Eternal, but it's frustrating when it is challenging, especially with these controls that don't quite correlate with today's standards, considering that this game came out around a time where Tomb Raider was a thing, and every other game like this was trying to replicate it. Even Barbie on the PS1, which tried to be a weird blend of that and Crash Bandicoot somehow. Because that always fucking works out, right? And yes lads, there is a difference between a hard and a challenging experience, and frustratingly headache-inducing mechanics that seem to be questionable at best. Also, hard mode takes away your weapons every time you die. Fucking shitty, am I right?
Fucking hell.
Not to mention that, for the sake of arguing, I thought I'd record my footage in hard mode, and it's exactly how I described it. Also another thing, why is Arch out of breath after running for 30 seconds? For somebody who has ripped his fucking Duke Nukem, you are sure an unfit fucker. Lose some weight, fatty 2x4 cannot get through the fucking kitchen door.
A secret.
Just like the movie, we are fighting the commandos, but this time with the robot assistants to go with them, in this exaggerated fantasy world of theirs, like I said before. Except, there's kind of a catch. I mean, for starters, you got Chip Hazard, Nick Nitro, Kip Killingan, and George Floyd. But where the fuck is the Alpha Omega Fad, Brick Bazooka, and that one guy who looks like a combination of the hag from Snow White and a certain DJ who used to run a game show and has a blue tracksuit on and has a cigar in his mouth for the whole time, named Lick Static.
Now I want to address the soundtrack because I know that someone in the comments is going to say that I forgot about the soundtrack. The soundtrack was composed by a well-known composer who goes by the name of Michael Giacchino, a composer who apparently produced this in conjunction with Medal of Honor Underground back when it was being developed. And yes, this is orchestral music in a movie tie-in game. Now some of you may roll your eyes over the fact that it's orchestral no full-on, for a fact that every AAA slop does a lazy attempt for a soundtrack with orchestra and ambiance. But this was something new for the time. This was revolutionary for the late 90s. The soundtrack really fits the aesthetic for the game. We go from a tribal beat to something more warlike, heroic. One thing that I did kind of have issue with was how it did the same cue for almost every track. Like, but hey, it's better to have the soundtrack playing rather than not have it playing, since without it, all you get is dead air with little to no ambiance to go with the environment. That is literally how I played it on my first review of this game on the shitty EPSXE emulator.
Models for a game made in 1998 don't look that bad. Also, some could have used a bit more improvement since they do kind of look blocky and janky. But either way, they have this Quake 1 engine type charm to it. So I can at least let it slide, considering that I have a soft spot for these types of games like this. Especially with the wall decorations with the War Mammoth. which isn't in the game for some reason. It would have made the game a hell of a lot more memorable if I was fighting on a mech, on a mammoth mounted with miniguns and rocket launchers, or even lasers. Controls haven't really aged well. Archer controls like he has autism. The way how it controls is like if a boomershooter and Tomb Raider were merged together, had butt sex with each other and shit a baby out. This is kind of the end result. It's kind of odd in a way. Sometimes Archer can't even run in a straight line, making the controls more frustrating to master. I mean, at least you got your side strafing, which is, I guess, something. Also, I'm controlling this with an analog stick, by the way, so that's why Archer walks like he's on some heavy drugs. Plus, the combat can be a little jank. Notice how I'm trying to side strafe the enemy to avoid projectiles. This would not be a problem if this type of AI was in something like Quake or Doom, where you have free movement and that you can run around at supersonic speed like in your typical boomer shooters. Here, since it has this awkward siphon filter meets Tomb Raider control scheme or pattern, it just looks like child's play, and it looks completely fucking retarded, like if Archer was autistically stemming during the gunfight. So that way it's kind of hard to circle strafe if you don't have one of the later PS1 controllers with the analog stick, and the other two shoulder buttons at the back.
What the fuck are you looking at?
Look at this here. I'm being shot at left, right and centre, and I'm trying to take out the turret by jumping. I mean, there is a future where I can aim manually, but here's the thing, I'm stuck in place and I cannot move, making me vulnerable to death by gunfire. I don't know, man, it seems that this game is trying to have its cake and eat it too. The enemies seem to be pretty straightforward. You got your sentry drones that don't move and fire at you, and you got your robots that can be fucked in the arse with the green toxic ammo. Mostly you'll be side strafing in combat to dodge projectiles in a very siphon filter style. Enemies don't seem to do that much besides than just stand there and shoot at you whilst they do the idle animation for 2 seconds. A bit tedious by today's standards, but it's possible for 1990, I guess. You got Kid that can shoot at you with strange looking projectiles, use his gun as his flamethrower, roundhouse kick and throw ninja stars at you. Also, I guess he's a ninja now? And there is some serious input lag when you're trying to stop moving. I swear, every time I've tried platforming in this fucking game, only to fall off ledges and platforms, it has been really frustrating. Tomb Raider at least had some weight to it in terms of controlling Lara, where you get to a ledge and you could actually walk closer by holding the walk button, which refrains you from falling off and resetting your progress all over again. Here, when Archer is always running, even if it's on a small platform, it's a mess, considering how fucked some of it is. Assistants or comrades, as I like to call them, can actually be a helping right hand in battle, considering that they can dispose of the enemy quicker than you ever could.
I've sent my right hand to dispose of you.
Your right hand comes off?
Sometimes, unless this dude has a rocket launcher or a fucking grenade launcher. Wait a minute, that sounds like you're cheesing the game. So I guess you'll be right in a way, considering that Insaniac is so overpowered that I don't even have to do anything. Sometimes there's moments when I have to assist, considering that I have to be the Lone Ranger who attacks the enemy somehow. And it's funny considering that in the movie, they claim that are peaceful beings that do not fight.
We shouldn't fight, we should hide.
And it takes like 3/4 of the movie for them to actually fight back. Here, they just show no mercy and just fuck up the enemy entirely, which beats the pussies from the movie, of course. Also, my comrade is getting in the way of my point of view. Get the fuck out of the way, I'm trying to fucking platform. Sometimes the enemies can drop ammo, and sometimes keys depending on which one is wearing a blue or red or yellow vest, which is also pretty neat, since I also remember Blood doing a similar thing with the cultist in the first level. The jump pads of walking into a blue flame and the Quake-like teleporters that actually does seem pretty cool at first, until you realise that through 2/3 of the rest of the game, we never see him again. Fuck. But as attention to detail, it is sure a good change of direction in terms of the movie, considering that the flames and quake-like teleporters look like something right out of a Demon Fortress, rather than whatever the hell Gorgonite is supposed to be. The weapons, or should I say different ammo types of your rapid-fire crossbow are interesting. Also, if they don't have names, you have the default ammo, which is unlimited, blue ammo, which does the homing projectiles, well, for the most part, the toxic green ammo, which does not poison the enemies despite the obvious toxic sign, but instead bounces off of other enemies, which is helpful for dealing with large groups of enemies. The downside to the green ammo is that it's the only weapon that does not do the fucking auto-aim. And later on, around the 5th level, we get the missile launcher, or a more stronger red gun according to the smallSoldiers wiki. The missile launcher can wipe out enemies with 2 or 3 rockets. It's much more of a benefit when you're dealing with George Floyd, who seems to have most of the health compared to the other commandos. Also, you got your other meter for additional things, like your spawning your allies, mines, and green force field, orange bombs, and the fucking thunderclap, which wipes out huge crowds in one hit, and perfect for killing the ones using mechs and harpoons. The draw distance looks god-awful. I've never seen draw distance that bad since Tenchu's Self-Assassins. Sometimes you can't even see who is shooting at you. But you gotta put up with the limitations somehow. Okay, sure, in games like Tomb Raider, it wasn't as bad and distracting and actually added to the game's atmosphere and environment. And in Crash Bandicoot, the draw distance is almost non-existent. These games came out in 1996, so what's this game's excuse again? Maybe it's the limitations of the engine they built from scratch, and also the lack of budget. Level 2 was probably most of my favourites, considering that how dark the environments look, and how these coloured keycards that actually lead to an interesting environment. The part when I'm swinging on the ledge is pretty cool in order to get the keys. Oh yeah, the keys! There are these weird-ass coloured guardian people you have to collect only to go to an altar of that colour when the guardian starts chanting and gives you a key. When all the keys are collected, they normally open a portal which looks like a tree's vagina.
The portal awakens.
And there is the introduction to Chip Hazard, or should I say, the clones of Chip Hazard, considering that you have to fight him so many times throughout the fucking game, and guess what? It's fucking obnoxious trying to fight him and making him the worst enemy in the game, considering that he fucking strafes your attacks only for you to be frustrated, and God forbid if you'll use the default ammo, because he really is a bullet sponge unless if you fuck him up with the toxic ammo and the rocket launcher. There's an enemy that has this exact AI in a way, and that's the Scourge from Unreal, or the Scar, whatever, Scar. He can not only side strafe, he can also dodge half of the incoming projectiles. Like I said about those types of enemies being in a game like this, with tank controls, it is absolutely infuriating trying to hit him unless if you get him up to a corner and fuck him up. Floating Fortress has its ups and downs. For some reason, walking through it just gives me the impression that it's going to collapse at any moment. And we also are introduced to flying drones who fire the same projectiles as the other turrets. And I hate them, considering that they are a nightmare to hit, to the point where I either have to take hits by the drone by just manually aiming at it, or I could just keep jumping and shooting at it till it's dead. And we get to summon Punch It. I swear these names get as lazy as they sound. This rhino looking motherfucker, who is the strongest ally in the game next to Slamfist. Oh yeah, we're gonna get to Slamfist pretty soon. I swear. Like, just give it a few levels. We also get introduced to the turret where you can fuck up everyone and also fight spaceships. Oh, kick me, bucko! That smell was the wonderful smell of Indian street food. Yum, yum. Wanna have some? So wait, is this taking place inside or outside? I don't know. I can't tell. The game doesn't tell me if it does, nor does this black void even give me a clue if it does. But either way, the turret fights on the penis-looking turret are okay. They're not anything to get excited about. The wiki calls them harpoons. You have to stay in place and take damage as this spaceship fires rockets at you. It may be fun for like the first or second time you fight this drone, but it gets old kind of quick because every time you're on these turrets, you're fighting the same fucking drones again and again and again, and maybe some enemies here and there. Oh, and there's also frustrating collision issues when you are trying to jump on the ledge for him to not grab on? Why? And there were other things that I was not expecting, was how I broke the game and fell to the floor once. You know, looking at this game more and more just goes to show how good this game could have been. Mainly because every area looks different and unique and memorable compared to the modern games, where there is no attention to detail in the environment and just a replication of a photo due to how anyone could just make anything now. Even guys having sex with muscular women with no boobs. I love how the jungle swamp-like environment with the Turok dinosaur hunter like treetops to go with it. Here we get introduced to Nick Nitro, who can fire grenades at you with his grenade launcher and just run around like a headless chicken. Which is annoying, but unlike Chip Hazard, where he doesn't side strafe, that's a positive, I guess. We are now introduced to the respawn pods, and those weird walking robots that throw 2 green bombs in the air. Honestly, I fucking hate these respawn pods. Why do they even have to be there? You could have just, I don't know, make them spawn in random places as you are trying to backtrack or trying to ambush the player after you pick something up. I mean, pretty fucking simple. I mean, games like Quake and Doom and possibly Unreal did it, so what's this fucking game's excuse for not fucking doing that shit? They're a waste of ammo to waste on and a pain in the ass to destroy. And don't suspect that the buggy ledges are gone, because this time I can barely grab onto a swinging tree branch unless I'm at some correct position.
For fuck's sake!
There is also an introduction to the best weapon in the game, that is the Mech Walker. So awesome to use as you can blow up everyone who opposes you with missiles. The guns also have a minigun function, but who cares about that when you can one-hit kill most enemies with fucking rockets? Also, the mech isn't without its flaws, that being how it doesn't auto-aim half the time, makes some combat feel tedious, and that the mech can be easily blown up. Especially in this level when I tried to kill the enemy, piloting it by thunderclapping or by just using the turret. Either way, it destroys it. It's a shame that some levels don't have it, because some are overcrowded with enemies to the point that it could really benefit and really give this game some rhythm to it. And when I was dumbfounded over how he couldn't drive one of the fucking mechs in Doom Eternal's second DLC campaign, which really would have improved the gameplay by a milestone, instead of doing the same shit over and over again. This is a fucking game adapted from a movie from 1998, and we have a fucking mech. Suck on that, Doom Eternal. This level felt like wasted potential in my opinion. Not the worst level, actually, you know what? I take that back. It's the worst level in the game. Atmospherically, it looks great. Forms built on this tribe-like setting still gives me flashbacks to Turok. But that aside, you're going through these non-linear pathways that just happen to loop the other way around because of the fucking bitch that is the Black Void. I've got stuck on this part because I was trying to go to get the second key only for me to go in the loop and back to where I fucking started. Yeah, skill issue, fuck you. Mainly because they use the same fucking textures for the bridge to the point that it does not differentiate from anything, where it could have gave the gameplay a good indicator of where to go. What's also jarring is that you have to fight a wave of enemies who randomly spawn. Aiming with the harpoon is tedious as it is. It's not the best when you're stuck and being fired at by fucking everyone in the entire void. My favourite part of the level is when you finally get to the cliff enclaves, which honestly don't look too bad unless if you're playing on hard. If you are, then God fucking forbid. Where you have to fight as many George Floyd clones as possible firing at you with bazookas as you lose your weapons, as you die, as you try to take them out, those bullet spongy enemies with your normal pea shooter. Derek killed this poor black man by kneeling on his neck. Now it's time for George to teach the whiteys a lesson and kneel on our necks next. The creepy caverns, so creepy that it's filled with clones of Chip Hazard. The soundtrack for this one is pretty eerie and actually fits the atmosphere and the environment pretty well. Huh, why have I heard this sample used before? Oh, and that's right, Shadow Man, another game that I have to review. The level was pretty alright, apart from fighting Chip Hazard. I still love the wall decorations and the feeling that I'm being watched, which adds to the scare factor. And you get to summon Slamfist in battle, who can fuck Chip up. The only downside and kind of disappointment is the boss at the end of the level, which is just a machine. The only way to kill it is by dropping those lava mines down the cracks and blowing up each tube. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you about the bosses. They're kind of mid and lame. Next! This level name is kind of lazy. Spaceship. Sure. Let's just go with that, I guess. This level is honestly good. I like the design of the gates and the base itself. Especially with the secret room where you can unlock with the last key after you open the portal. The only downside to this is the fucking level and how it fucking starts. Seriously, whose fucking idea was it to put the fucking turret right where you walk out? Right where you start into the open? Who? Fucking bad level design, I swear. That can be circumvented by just using the thunderclap spell, if you haven't already, from the last level of fucking course. Oh, you could pick it up here as well. I'm retarded. And there's this part when you have to deal with the same fucking shit as you try your hardest to aim at the guy on the turret who happens to drain your fucking health bar anyway, which is bad because of the fucking black void. Hello? It costed me lives to the point where I have to start right from the beginning again because of this stupid fucking level design. So you blow up the spaceships that look too small to fit in for people like that, and to the point that, you know, it looks like the same fucking size as that one submarine with the Xbox 360 controller. Also, I want to say that the bat creature you summon named Nibble is pretty fucking cool, and he can shoot lasers too. Hall of Patriots has to be one of my second favourites in the game. Why? Well, at the start of the fucking level, you can pilot a mech and blast the doors down and fuck shit up. It feels good to do that after dealing with the other levels so far. And to get your revenge on George Floyd's family. Excuse me? You mean, oh my neck! Hall of Patriots? I don't see any Patriots unless you count the clothes of Mr. Floyd over here. But what the fuck do I know, right? Then you have to blow up the TV satellite dish, which shoots out lasers at you for some reason. It's a gimmick boss again. Whoop-de-fucking-do. And the only way to destroy it is to shoot it in the middle to the point where it deflects the tube, destroying it. Another shit boss to add on top of the mediocre movie tie-in game. I cannot stress how fucking frustrating it is in order to hit this fucking thing where enemies are trying to shoot at you. But luckily enough, I could just use the thunderclap to wipe them out. Graveyard of War. So much war to the point that even the tombstones and graves are now destroyed.
You son of a bitch, you moved the cemetery, but you left the bodies, didn't you? You son of a bitch, you left the bodies and you only moved the headstones! You only moved the headstones! Why? Why?
Love the atmosphere, which reminds me of a Quake 2 level, and something right out of Heretic 2. Loving the spiral lava, by the way, though. But that aside, it's a good level. Of course, it gets better when you find the mech and start killing everyone in sight. Nuclear Mine is also a good one too. Still love this unique design that nobody gives the game credit for. I swear if I was going to make a remake of this game to my liking, I could just rip the textures from the PS1 ROM and recreate this as a Quake mod in Doom. And you also bump into a wet fart of the gimmick boss to the point where you have to jump and dodge your way through this. And the level comes to an end after you walk through this visually appealing hallway. Yeah, notice how I'm mostly talking about the level design and not the enemies? Bumped into all the enemies as it is, and there's literally every single enemy throughout the entire game, which is sad because we could have at least have this game benefit with having enemies like Brick Bazooka and Link as enemies. Launch Center also looks pretty cool.
Punch it is ready for action. Punch it, more like fist it. Welcome to ancient Rome, motherfuckers.
I love them and the level design. Still hate fighting Chip. Thank God it's the last time I ever fight him in this entire game. Which is funny because when I was round my aunt's house, my cousin told me it was the last level in the game. Boy was he wrong. Then you find this Doom keycard and you have to blow up spaceships again, rinse and repeat. I like the name Ohenfrier. Ohenfrier. Sounds pretty German, so German that it literally sounds like a title for a Rammstein song. Like Feuerflair. Good level, some platforming here and there that are simple. So simple that even the caveman can do them. Wink wink nudge nudge. I also love the design for the endgame, mainly because I can't tell what the fuck this thing is. But I don't care because it looks pretty cool. Which I swear is only part you can exit the level whilst riding a mech, which is fucking badass as hell. Now we are getting into the meat and potatoes, and the last level where Insomniac fights the enemies with you. This has to be my favourite map in the game, aside from some Commander maps and some Gorgonite ones. It's full of secrets to find and a non-linear passage. Also, I love the lava and tubes, by the way. Seriously, this looked cool! Why doesn't anyone talk about how cool this level design was? Nice touch with the lava room, by the way. Shame the platforming is ass. Here we are, the last level in the game. Inner Sanctum. This is where we kill the final boss. The one who was responsible for everything. Do you want to know who the final boss really is? No, really, guess. You don't have to. It's Chip Hazard again. And he's in a high-tech battle armor, which makes him extremely deadly. Walking up to him is suicide enough as he could just melee you with his staff. Or worst of all, when you're far away from him, he just shoots you with his fucking Devastator. Insta-killing you. This is another one of those boss fights that's kind of gimmicky and just there for the sake of having the final boss. Then, once you decrease a third of his health gauge, he will start flying and shooting you. Which honestly, the animation just looks fucking bad and lazy, and rushed and very last minute. Plus, aiming at him with a harpoon is complete chore, considering it's just as fun as trying to squash a mosquito in your room. So, as you finally kill him, you get this awesome cutscene where his armor just explodes multiple times after catching fire. Then we get this FMV cutscene of archers stabbing the commander flag.
Let it end here.
And then we rolled the credits, with a slideshow of concept art that should have been in the game in the first place. Like, seriously, look at these areas. Where was the elephant-like creature that we could have used as some sort of weapon against the commandos? Why couldn't I visit the area in the game that looks like this? This area that looks like the Soul Reaver Spectral Realm. Honestly, this would have been way better if we actually had this shit in the game. So, what else does this game have to offer? Well, there's a 2-player mode where you get to play as either Archer or Chip Hazard. I couldn't get it to work considering that I only have one controller connected. Fuck it, I'll use somebody else's gameplay, since I'm a lazy fuck. I've played it before with a friend or a family member. I know what I'm talking about. Shut the fuck up. So the modes are pretty straightforward. You got your flag mode and frag mode, which might as well be deathmatch if I'm being honest. Like, just say how they are. Deathmatch and capture the flag. Simple. And to nobody's surprise, both Archer and Chip play very similarly to each other. They both have the same ammo as Chip, is in a different colour and uses different projectiles, as they can both summon allies to fight amongst them. Archer has his Gorgonites whilst Chip has his robots? You both fight to the death with Harpoon and Mech from the game. Need I say more?
I'm going into AI speech for a second here to tell you about the prototype that I just stumbled across as I was editing this video. Mainly because I don't feel like cutting shit out and wasting my breath over something this lengthy. But you know what? I'll try and keep it brief. So there was this June 23rd, 1998 build that I just found off some site named Hidden Palace, which has stored a bunch of dumps of prototypes and beta versions of old games. Seriously, go check that shit out. And before I knew about this, I knew there was a prototype somewhere on the internet, since I remember one video of some guy playing the prototype before he either got banned or closed down his channel. And a big shout out to Crash Override who dumped it, and to CVLT of Osiris who released it back in January 12th, 2020. The prototype includes early versions of the levels, looking different from the final product and more non-linear with different textures for everything including the doors. As you get to the main menu, you can see that the music loop is not there, just complete awkward silence. Then you play the game and you're taken to a somewhat altered version of Dimensional Temple, which was originally named Gorgon, with this weird crystal thing in the background. Instead of fighting Chip Hazard, you are fighting Kip Killigan, and instead of the loading screen with the gargoyle, we get the SmallSoldiers icon. The models look unchanged. The AI for them wasn't properly implemented yet, since they are shooting in another direction instead of me, which proves that they should have gone to Specsavers. The voice clips are different from one another, especially Archer and Kip Killigan.
Boy, it's fantastic.
Now let the battle begin.
Sometimes the death animations are either unfinished or just weird to look at, since this one has Kip's arms and head come off and he 180s into a death animation. The projectiles for the weapons are different, especially for the icons, which we saw in the screenshots at the back of the cover. What the fuck is this? Did they design them in MS Paint or something? Every time a level starts, Archer always says, "Let the battle begin," especially for spawning your teammates, which sometimes works. When Archer tries to go up or down a slope, he does the Lara Croft skid, to which wasn't in the final product. When the druids spawn, I had to save and load the save states a few times since the game kept crashing due to not being optimized yet, and that the scripts weren't even loading properly. Same with the keys, which would do this sometimes. When the portal opens to the next level, a bunch of stone pillars circle around it, and when I tried to enter in, it crashed. Dimensional Temple is one of the most playable levels from start to finish. Sort of. The rest of the levels are unfinished, whilst either being a huge liminal space, geometry looking different, enemies shooting at you from far away since the script didn't know the meaning of the word ambush yet, and some of my weapons not working in some areas for some reason. I went to look at the boss level only for it to include lava that looks like a wallpaper off of a late 90s and early 2000s GeoCity website. How did I access these levels, you may ask? Well, there's a way to access them through the main menu by holding L1, L2, R1, R2 together, which brings up this debug menu where Archer is standing in this plane with a black background with this spinning smallSoldiers pyramid above him. Here we can play all of the levels in the build as we can adjust the difficulty to normal, hard as nails, or wimp. They should have left it with names like that, to be honest. We can adjust the volume to stereo or mono with a volume bar to go with it. And there's the cheats to which don't work. So that is it of the prototype version. I didn't get to no-clip into anything special like having Kip Killigan and George Floyd guarding the pen where Insaniac is being held since that option wasn't implemented. So, I guess that's basically it. I guess I'll go back to your local scheduled programming, I guess. Shit.
To conclude this review on the smallSoldiers PS1 game, because I don't know about you, but I consider this an overlooked gem of the time. It's good, but not great, but it's good. Like a 7 out of 10 good. Okay, it's kind of a mixed bag, but I still consider it a gem. Sure, it wasn't something that is going to be reinventive in the genre, as well as something revolutionary like Tomb Raider or a cult classic like Blood 1997. That took 20 years to get a remaster treatment. But it's a fun game to kill some hours with, putting aside the obvious problems and glitches, of course, which makes this a typical movie tie-in game that was rushed through development in order to meet the release date of the film around the time. Putting games like Siphon Filter and Tomb Raider in a blender makes for a promising experience, even though that Siphon Filter released a year after this fucking game. Although, the game does seem to overstay its welcome with the same old recycled enemies with no additions whatsoever. The environment and overall level design actually make up for the amount of above mediocre shit that is in this game. The only gripe I have is with the design is the typical dark void that was used in 90% of PS1 games around the time, which really takes away what could have been a better designed game. Yes, the controls may be a bit dated to your average zoomer, and it's not going to win everyone over. You'll get used to it. Unless if you're fighting a commander which side strafes like Chip Hazard and Nick Nitro, you'll rather be playing this with controls from Gears of War. Like, what the fuck am I calling it a tie-in? It's its own story. Yes, it's as short as your typical boomershooter campaign, or maybe shorter, clocking into 3 or 4 hours, only with 14 levels, and it does tend to lack a campaign story mode for Chip Hazard, something that the other RTS game got right. A really good, promising game, buried under this layer of mediocre movie tie-in. A game that's mostly likely obscured and forgotten about, as this game that some people are going to be like, oh yeah, I remember this game, not that everybody cared or anything. I don't know about you, but something tells me that this game could have been a lot better. Knowing that the resources and technology around the time was rather limited, this could have actually been really well crafted experience, with some proper backstory, puzzles and lore to go with it. Why are the commandos trying to exterminate the 6 Guerrillian Gorgonites that are trying to look under every sewer and underground passage as possible? No, I'm not saying that just because we have technology today we can make slot blades for Woken and Spider Cut too. But something that could have at least been something to go back to. Archer could have at least had doubled the amount of levels to around 28, where it could have been a reasonable large campaign, especially for Chip Hazard, and the only way you actually get to play as Chip is if you play the Player 2 mode. This game has wasted potential. There were levels that were obviously cut out. Seriously, where was this area in the game? Or this one? Why can I not visit this area? For something that was DreamWorks' answer to Toy Story, this was not what I had in mind. Considering that, again, this game is doing its own thing, making everything about the movie completely irrelevant, apart from the Gorgonites being against the Commandos, of course. You might as well just say that it's a T-rated third-person dark fantasy quake game with the smallSoldiers skin slapped onto it, because half of the stuff here is completely unrecognizable to the movie. I don't know if there is a special kind of software that allows me to rip models and textures off this ROM, because I would really love to remake this game in Trench Boom if they have the time, because I had this idea in my head about a remake of this game, under my own IP of course. A game that has some melee controls but mostly focused on range type combat, and better combat, enemies, level design and everything that I just explained a few paragraphs back. I love this game no matter what. I just cannot help but to come back to it, regardless of some of the negative shit I said. And again, just for the sake of nostalgia. Although, as well as everything else, I am hoping to make a successor to this game. And I'm hoping anybody else to make a successor as well. Which could use that wasted potential to its advantage.